Welcome, everyone. It's 12 o'clock, so we will just start off. We are having a webinar today about creating safe school zones with lessons from both Denmark and the Netherlands. We have many international participants who have signed up for this from lots of different countries and many different time zones. So the webinar will be recorded and sent out for everyone to see when the time fits, and also to share with colleagues or just to watch again if you want to do that. With us online, we have a small but committed crowd. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to all of you. My name is Julie, and I will be the moderator of today's session. Overall, creating urban environments fit for cycling is a way of enhancing equality to make sure that everyone can get around and have access to urban functions like going to school, making grocery shopping, going to the doctor, or maybe also to work. For those who are maybe too young or too old or too disabled to use a car. It's also about enhancing health by making it safe and attractive to use active transportation. For instance, in Denmark, we had a study recently showing that for every 1 kilometer biked instead of using a car, society will save about €1 in health costs. So there's also an economic benefit to it. And then it's also about creating life quality by improving urban environments and enhance the freedom to move about for everyone. In almost all urban environments, there is a battle for space. So if you gave space to some functions, for instance, better bike infrastructure, you will have to change something in the existing environment, as for instance, take down some car parking or make it less efficient to go by car. So to succeed, it takes political prioritization, it takes courage and will. And we will hear a lot more about that today. And just before going to the agenda, I just want to make a final remark about, focus on bike mobility for children. It's also about making transportation safe for all. And by addressing the most vulnerable user groups, the solution will benefit us all in the end. Right, so for the agenda today, we have 3 presentations. First, Monique will tell us about, will give us an introduction to child mobility and school zones. Then we have Burkja, who's going to tell us about a project in Eindhoven about making school streets. And then last up, we have Natasha from Copenhagen municipality, who's going to tell us about the children's safe zones in Copenhagen. And then last up, we have 10 to 15 minutes for questions. Please write them down in the chat, and then we will take it from there. There's none of the participants who are able to speak in this Demio solution, so you will have to write it down, and then we will take them after. Okay, thank you. And then Monique, you're up.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Monique Jansen. I work at Mobycon in the Netherlands. And as Julie mentioned, I would like to give a short introduction about child mobility in the Netherlands. But of course, since we have an international public here, I would first show a few slides about the Netherlands in general. So, what you know about the Netherlands, it's a flat country. We love the sun when it shines. But we don't mind so much because we actually bike under any weather condition here. Even our king, you see our king here, he uses the bike. The police uses the bicycles a lot through the city to just do their work, and where people cycle up to an old age. Well, also research has shown that more women cycle than men in the Netherlands. And of course, where a lot of children cycle independently to school. More or less 70 to 75% of the children use their bicycle to go to school. But this has not always been the case. And I think this is an important point to point out as well, because if we talk about the Netherlands and maybe also in Denmark, people used to say a lot like, but you are flat, you have always used the bicycle a lot. That's not true, because after the Second World War, the cars actually started to rise, the car use, the car ownership as well. And streets that were not designed for cars were now filled up by cars. This led to quite a lot of incidents and accidents, and even, children got killed as well. And this led to an action group called Stop the Kindermoord protest, demonstration. There were quite a lot of demonstrations happening throughout the country, especially in Amsterdam, which meant that people actually, they couldn't handle it anymore. They didn't want their children to die in the streets from the cars. They occupied the streets and they claimed the streets back. This all happened around the 70s, 1972, that it started to rise. And the interesting part is that it even got subsidized by the Dutch government on a point. So actually, there was a lot of agreement over there. But it started from the people themselves. Well, the same year, an energy crisis happened, and the oil price quadrupled back then. So then the government decided to implement car-free Sundays. And actually, these Sundays, there were no cars on the streets anymore, and children could actually play on the streets, have a different vision about how we could use the streets as well. And this all led actually to the mindset of actually we should give the street back to the children and back to the bicycle, different kinds of mobility. Same year as well, there was published a documentary, highly recommended to watch. You can still watch it on YouTube. It's very interesting. It's about the neighborhood De Pijp in Amsterdam. And you can see actually that also the Pijp was not built for cars, but children were used to play there a lot. And then there was this child that you can see over here. He's also still very active right now. But he was actually the first fighter to claim the street back. And it's very interesting. And actually then the government started to think, indeed, we need to think a little bit more about making the streets usable for cycling, for walking again. So it's very interesting that even children were active in this. Now, after all going back to the topic, while child mobility matters, here you see on the left, you see a picture from our colleague, Robin. This is his son. And actually the cars right now start to become bigger as well. And this leads again maybe to vehicles like drivers cannot see the children anymore, but also the children have a whole different perspective of a street. Well, actually, we would like the children to be more independently and free and use the streets as well. Research has shown that cycling or walking to school from a young age leads to a lot of independency and freedom. And you can go after school, you can go to your friends, or you are aware of what's happening around you, instead of that your parents drive you and you have no idea actually which street you are. Now, active travel also leads to sharper minds. Also, research has shown that cycling to school or even your work boosts your focus for up to 4 hours. The memory of children, the brain capacity actually increases as well. And what I already mentioned, it's very important as well to build risk assessments of your environment where you are. So that's another positive point. And of course, healthier kids. UNICEF has published a report that where children are the most happy. And the Netherlands and also Denmark scored very high. And we believe that also the physical exercise and the feeling of being independent and free supports this a lot. And of course, active travel for children leads also to happier parents. Because you don't have the frustration anymore to bring them to school, and you know that your children grow up in a nice environment. But this all starts at the front seat. And in the Netherlands, actually from the moment I think you are 6 years old or 7 years old, you already get lessons about traffic. So traffic education we have in the Netherlands. And this already gives us a feeling of, okay, it's really a skill that we should learn, being aware of the environment, but also that we can go alone to school at a point. I will go a little bit quick through this one. I chose 4 elements that lead to a safe and active way to school. Later on, my colleague Bauke will also show how we use these elements in a practical example. The first is traffic calming. So how can you create a safer environment for children to go to school? Now, traffic calming infrastructure is really important. And you can think, for example, of closing the full street off around the school. If it's not possible, maybe a temporary closure of the school street, that children on specific times in the morning can go there without any cars being there. These are some examples as well of actually streets that completely were closed. And other actually low-cost features that you can think of is like on the school street where a lot of children bike or walk, you can have recognizable features with colors, or on the right you see the octopus plant is actually from Belgium, and it's very well implemented and recognizable. Like everybody there knows that if there is an octopus, this is a school area, and here we should slow down our cars. And of course, engagement. And with engagement, I mean like try to engage the children, but also the parents, the schools, in what is safe for them and how do they actually prefer to walk or bike to school. What can you all do together? Maybe you can develop a bike train or a walk train together. Like there are many opportunities, but we really need to know and involve them as well. And here on the right, you see a picture of a big box that we used in some of our workshops in Lisbon, actually, where we help urban planners to watch the street from the perspective of the child, because children, of course, are shorter than we and urban planners. And then you have a different perspective of, okay, maybe this car over there should not be parked there because the child cannot watch over it, for example. Or, then some short examples, like on the left, there is a nice example, I really find it nice, the province of Utrecht. They have an initiative of involving children in taking care of their surroundings of the school, and they plant trees there. They are actually harvesting sometimes vegetables, for example, and they are really involved with the area around their school, so they care about the area as well. So I think that's a nice thing to think about. And then I will go quickly to an example where we have worked on internationally. Also, this was a project, it's a pilot project. It was a low-cost project, lower budget, but still we wanted to try to make the environment of the school more safe. This is in Batumi in Georgia. And actually this started all with involving children and parents. Okay, what are the most dangerous ways to walk to school? Because 75% of the children live around the school and actually can easily walk there. But still parents bring them every day because it's too dangerous. So we made some designs, concept designs, and then later on we brought them in practice. And here I added some before and after pictures. So you can see that the parents just dropped off their children on the street. And then a few days later, we were painting the street and making it much more colorful. They were parking it all, everywhere. Actually, everywhere was a tiny bit of space. Cars were parked. And this was like a week pilot. And afterwards, we are still talking with the parents and with the schools what to do. But yeah, we have to see what comes out of that, of course. But it's a really interesting project, and also with involvement of the children and the parents and the municipality as well. So actually the question is, what future do we want? What I mentioned already, like many times we hear more and more that parents don't want their children to walk or bike to school because there's too much traffic, but then they are part of the traffic as well. So yeah, we need to really focus there. And Boukje, my colleague, has a nice example of Eindhoven. So Boukje.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so my name is Boukje Dotinga. I'm a colleague of Monique, and I've worked on a project in the city of Eindhoven in the Netherlands. And there we also did kind of a little bit similar to the Batumi project. We organized a pilot project at 3 school zones where we implemented temporarily street design. And I will tell you something about this project and some lessons that we learned from this. So just about what is a school street. well, it's kind of like a temporarily redesigning of the streets, and mainly focused on the drop-off and pick-up hours that the children go to school. So, for example, as you can see on the image on the right, it could be like a temporarily barrier that you put down, so to prevent cars from going into the streets. And the idea is mostly to make less space for cars, but mainly to create a safer environment for the children, focusing on mostly pedestrians and cyclists. And in the case of the Eindhoven project, we also really wanted to see if we could change the choice of transport and move towards active mobility. And of course, also very important to raise awareness about traffic safety and why it's important for parents to try and bring their children to school by foot or by bicycle. And in Eindhoven, we did the project for about 4 weeks in the month of May. And we had, we have some different phases that I will tell you something about. So we organized this for the municipality of Eindhoven. And we were in charge of kind of like the whole organization of the pilot. And I will tell you something about the different phases of the project and some interesting things. So first, about the preparations. So in this case, the schools they were voluntarily participating in the pilot. So for us, it was important to get the schools involved and to talk to them about why it would be interesting for them to do this pilot. And one of the things that we noticed is that in a lot of these cases, the schools already had some kind of assigned traffic teacher or traffic parent. So there was also already some attention to the traffic safety issues. And also there was kind of a coordinator or someone already responsible for thinking about solutions. So I think that was one of the things that made it easier for us to implement this project. Another thing that we had to think about was, we asked the schools to also put in some effort into the project. So we helped them organize it, but they also had to have their own volunteers, so either parents or teachers. So we helped them recruiting volunteers. Because in the situation of these school street pilots, it was a temporarily redesigning. So, for example, placing a barrier, like I already said, but then also you had to remove it from the streets again. So it was very important to have enough people on the streets during the pilot, so during the drop-off and pickup hours. Otherwise, it could not really be organized. And one other thing that was very important during preparations was informing the neighborhood and the parents, and also explaining kind of to them, why are we doing this? What is the main goal? Especially for the neighborhood, because they did have to deal kind of with the blocking off of their streets. So for the residents, it was very important to know why are we doing this? And then another thing, during preparations, we had we had discussion and sessions with the schools to figure out what kind of design would fit in this particular situation. So for 2 streets, you can see here the kind of map layout for the temporary design. And the green lines are kind of like the routes that could either be driven by car on the left image. It was kind of the car route, and on the right image it's the walking route. And the blue zones are the places where it could still be kind of allowed to park their car, and the red barriers or the red lines are kind of like the barriers that we placed in the street. So for example, in the left you can see that one street is closed off from car traffic, and that the people had to drive around if they still got with the car and brought their children with the car. And then we also have another design that we implemented, which is at another school. And in this situation, it was a one-way street because the school didn't really want to totally block off the streets. They said, yeah, we have some issues with cars, but also a lot of parents already come by bicycle. So we just want to make it a little bit safer and a little bit more clear what the situation is. And they said, yeah, we would like to implement a temporarily one-way street. So during the pickup and drop-off hours, we would just place these signs to make sure that you could only enter with the car from one way. Then about, during the implementation. So we did this for 4 weeks. And I think that one of the things that we learned is that it's very important to use a combination of measures. So in this situation, we placed either barriers or traffic coins in the streets. So that was kind of like an infrastructural measure. But it is also very important to have, for example, like Monique already said, traffic education, and also give a lot of attention to like other things except for just changing the infrastructure. So in our project, what we did was we organized a fun opening event on the day that we started the pilot, to also give some extra attention to the goal and why we are doing this. And we also we thought of some games, like for example, the children would vote on how they got to school, and that also led to the children being more engaged into the project. And I think one of the things that we also found out is it's very important to keep on explaining the goal over and over to the residents, to the children, to the parents, so they also take it a little bit back home and talk about the pilot, and to really let it live in the whole community. Then we also did an evaluation. So we did a survey amongst the residents and parents, and we also evaluated with the school, because after 4 weeks the pilot stopped again, and we really wanted to know how did the parents experience it, how did the residents experience it. And it was quite positive, because they said it improved the safety, and they also felt that it really increased awareness of traffic safety, and kind of also the current issue with there being a lot of cars at a specific moment. And it also really got the community more engaged, because we really try to involve the residents and the school, so everyone kind of knew about it. But there were also kind of some negative points that were pointed out, because one thing that we really saw is that some parents, like small amount of parents, that were really not happy about the school street project, and they didn't really agree with it. And they also kind of they didn't really follow up the traffic rules that we implemented, or like the different routes. So it kind of turned into a relocation of traffic issues, because, for example, one parent would block kind of the route with their car because they didn't agree, or another parent got very aggressive towards the volunteers. So we still had kind of some issues, and it was very important to know about this. And we really have to think about, if we would do another project, like how could we also get these parents more involved. And I think that's again, with getting everyone involved and engagement, that it's very important to really put attention to this. And also we kind of got back from the schools and the volunteers that they felt like sometimes there was kind of a lack of official enforcement, or like police or something. So that also kind of made it clear that they didn't really feel safe at all times to talk to other parents. And that was kind of one of the issues that we faced. Well, then of course the next step would be to get like a permanent design. In the situation of Eindhoven, we did this project last year in May, and we evaluated, and then it was kind of like closed during October, November, and there has not been any follow-up yet, but we hope that there will be. So I think that's also one of the things that is very important with these kind of projects, that it's kind of temporary, and in this situation it was 4 weeks, and then there's also a summer holiday, and you can already see that the school or the parents, they kind of forget about it again. So it's very important to keep this traffic safety issue at the attention of the schools and the parents and also the residents. And I think that one of the things that we learned is that it's very important to have like maybe some kind of permanent coordinator or person at school, but also at the municipality, that will keep attention towards this topic. And I will just quickly also show you some examples of how a permanent design could be. I think this one is kind of similar to what Monique already showed you. It's kind of like a basic school zone where you have some colorful poles, and then also some, like the school letters on the way, but it's not really like a closing off of the street. And this one is an example of how you could like temporarily close off the street. So you can like these poles that you see on the right is like the new situation, and in this situation there will be like some volunteer from the school or like a teacher, and this person will just every morning put up these poles so that no cars are allowed to enter, and then the rest of the day they will lower the poles again so that every car can still enter the streets. And then I also had this example, which is a school in another city in the Netherlands. And you can see here that they just, from the beginning, because it's a very new school building, they just made sure that the entrances of the school were only accessible by bike. So I thought that was very clever, because then you have it already, at the start of your design. So I think that's a nice example of how it should be, or how it would be very safe for cyclists and pedestrians. And that was our presentation. So I think we can give the word to Natasha.
Hello, my name is Natasha, and I will tell you about the children's safety zones here in Denmark. Let's see how I switch the slides. Right there it is. Good. A safety zone is a zone where it's time entry band for vehicles between 7:30 until 8:30. And this safety zone, it has been politically decided to establish safety zones around the schools in Copenhagen. We usually, before the decision, we screen all the 130 schools in Copenhagen, and identified that 70 of these 70 schools were screened positive to establish a safe zones. But before we establish these zones, we are in dialogue with the schools, the principals, the local councils, and the residents in the areas, because we have to get a backup from and to see that they want this safety zone. Right now we have established like 20 children's safety zones. And the purpose of these zones is to create a safe and secure conditions for children walking and cycling to school. The estimated price is around 50 to 125,000 kroners to establish. When we visit the schools and see if there is a possibility for the schools to get a safety zone, we often see if it's close to a primary road or if it's more located in a resident area. We also like, for instance, this drawer that you see on the screen. This is an area which that's located 2 schools in, and we got a lot of mails from parents who were worried about their children walking and cycling to schools because there was so much traffic around the school when the time was around 8 o'clock. And then we went out there and we saw like the most of the traffic problems came from parents who were dropping off their kids. So with that, we had a dialogue with the school, the principals and the school leaders and the local councils, and then we made like this plan for how we could ban vehicles to entry. And actually, right now we got really positive effect from a response from the school, from parents who are so happy about no vehicles around the school. More children are walking and bicycling. Like the principal, he wrote a mail to me for like 2 weeks ago that he was so happy and pleased that right now he doesn't see so many cars around the school, and he sees more children walking to school. When we're implementing these safety zones, we do it through a hearing. We need to be sure that the residents if they have something to say, they also have an influence on how we will manage to get the plan. We also are in close dialogue with the police, because when we implement this safety zone, it's very important that in the beginning that the police are present, so they can show parents and the vehicles that they are not allowed to enter this area because it's forbidden. When we implement these zones, we also make these information brochures, which are for the parents, so they are noticed about how the zone will look like, why we are implementing it, and then we give 4 specific advice before we implement this safety zone. We ask them, one of the advices is that we tell them, learn your children about the rules in the traffic, find a safe zone, a safe road to school, and practice the zone, like walk with your children to school more often, because then the kids will get used to go and either walk or bicycle to school. When we were so lucky that when we were implementing some of these safety zones, we also had like Børn i Trafikhøjde, a private council who offered to do like a little challenge where they when I was implementing a safety zone around St. Anne school, they were involving the kids as well. So the kids were making these competitions for the classes from 0 to 4th class, I think, where they were competing about who could bicycle or walk to school the most. And they should like do this for 2 weeks, and then afterwards they will get a little reward. I have a little video to show as well.
Hej, jeg hedder Benjamin, og jeg hedder Freja. Vi går i 5. dag på Sankt Anne skole. Vi har lavet et samarbejde med Københavns Kommune og Trafik i Børnehøjde. Vi har fået 3 personer på vores skole, og det skal være med til at gøre det sikrere for børn at cykle og gå i skole. Tryghedszonen betyder, at der er indkørselsforbud på Otto Rødsvej og Tyge Krabbesvej fra 7:30 til 8:30. På Ove Billesvej er det fra 7:45 til 8:30, og beboerkørsel og arbejdskørsel er tilladt. 5. A har lavet en trafikselskab, som hedder Charlie, som er alien, og den har lavet en konkurrence, som forhåbentlig får flere børn til at cykle og gå i skole. Tak fordi I gad at se med.
So this were like, they made a little competition on how to get the kids to bicycle and walk more to school. When we're implementing this safety zone around St. Anne's school, one of the kids told me, my mom, she thinks this is a horrible idea. She drives me to school every day. And then there was another one saying, oh, my mom, she thinks it's a really cool idea. Good idea and cool idea. So it's like the opinions are very, very opposite sometimes. Some of the challenges that I see is that some of the principals they're asking where can my workers park? Is it possible for them to entry the time band roads? And I'm telling them no, because this is like for each and every one. It's not only for like the parents who are dropping up their kids, it's for the safety of the kids that we are implementing this safety zone. This project will also be measured using transport habit survey, and we measured it last year, and we'll do it again in 26 and 28 to see how the effect of the safety zone is, if it has, like if the kids feel more safe walking and bicycling to school, but also if more of them are using a bicycle or walking to school. So that was all from me.
Okay, thank you to all of you. Now we have time for some few questions, and maybe if you could just go on stage, every one of you. Okay, thank you. Maybe we can have the first question for Natasha, because you were just making your presentation. We have a question about, is the police presence always, is it always necessary to have the police presence in this school zone, or is it only during the first couple of days?
Actually, the first couple of days, the police are present, but afterwards, they will sometimes be present, but it's not where I schedule. I can go in dialogue with the president if I see a school or hear from principals from schools that there are a lot of vehicles who are crossing the time band zone. Then I will write a mail to the police, and then they will be present. So it depends on how good the safety zone works. If it works pretty good, it's not necessary for the police to be there. If it doesn't, then the police will be present more often. So.
And just to follow up on that one, what will they do if parents are, behaving unauthoritatively?
To begin with, they will be lifting a finger the first week, but when the zone has been there for a while, for instance, like 3 or 4 months, they will write a ticket. That's how it works. They will not be so soft.
No.
So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then a question for both Burke and Natasha is, when you encounter oppositions from the citizens, what will that be? What will typical be the negative effects that you have in the beginning? If anyone some resistance, if the parents are, not happy about streets closing down, or will they just, accept it silently or be happy about it?
I think it's very difficult for the parents to argument that it's negative that we are making a time band zone, because it's for the sake of their kids. So it's really difficult for them to argument against.
So you don't experience any resistance against it?
Of course, I do, for some parents, but I do I get emails from parents who think it's a disaster, they cannot drop off their kids, but they also acknowledge that the traffical problems with all of the vehicles so close to the schools. So they also see the issues and they are part of it. So
Yeah.
do you want to?
What about your work? What do you say about this?
Yeah,
Do you experience any resistance in
yeah.
Netherlands?
Yeah, I already told in my presentation as well that there were actually some parents that disagreed very much and also were a little bit aggressive sometimes. But their main argument was that they needed to bring their kids by car because they also had to get to work. So mainly, their schedule, or they would say that they just thought it was nonsense, the whole idea of the pilot. And then, if they don't agree with the environment being safer, it's very difficult to argue. But I also think like some parents that they were very used to going by car, but they also lived very close to the school, and they did kind of change their behavior during the pilot. So there were also some parents that acknowledged that maybe they could also just be a little less lazy with the car and just bring their kids with the bike, and then after that go to their work by car.
Yeah. Then about, going by bike to school, we have a question about using helmets. One is saying that you could see from the pictures from the Netherlands that very few kids are using helmets, and would like to know how that is perceived in the Netherlands, and maybe also, in comparison to Denmark. Maybe you can both elaborate a bit on this.
Can you start?
Oh, I will start. I think the helmet discussion in the Netherlands is very actual right now, especially also with like all the new kind of vehicles coming up and the speed is increasing, and it's not obligated to wear helmets yet. It's not obligated to wear helmets, but you see that the discussion is growing. So I think some parents that don't feel that's safe, they feel like the children should wear helmets, but it's not obligated. So it's really by choice themselves.
Yeah.
In Denmark, it's obligated for kids to wear helmets, and we often see most of the kids actually wearing helmets. So, it's not such a big. We see more kids wearing helmets than adults, but so that's my response.
Yeah. Then we have a question for Burke, or maybe also for Monique, but one of the participants, Pablo, would like to know if there's an official sign for this school street. Do you have an official sign in the Netherlands? Or do you use other signage for showing the school street?
I think kind of the official one is just the school letters on the road. I think that's the most official one. And then you see, for example, Monique said about the octopus, but you also see a lot of times the colorful poles. But these change kind of in different cities, and also, throughout the years, the things have changed. So I think the school letters are the official one.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Then we have a question for Natasha. Mary is asking if you have seen the results from last year.
Yeah, I've seen the results from last year, but this is like our start point from last year, so we cannot measure it. We don't have something to compare it about.
No, that's your baseline.
Yeah, so that's our 0 point to begin with. Yeah, so we will maybe we can see a difference in 26. I hope so.
Yeah. And then we have a follow-up question to that, asking if you can see that the opinions have changed amongst the parents after they have gotten used to the changes around the schools, after establishing these school zones.
New changes are always difficult to implement, even if it's private or professional. And I think I see a lot of these parents and to begin with, some of them are negative about it, but everything takes time to adjust. And in the beginning, I get mails from parents, and I also like get more often mails from the principals where we implementate these safety zones. But after a while, it slows down, and then I don't hear so much. Then it's only if some vehicles are not, if they're crossing the time band zone. So I think like in the beginning I hear a lot from them, but they get used to it after some time. So no. So yeah.
Do you have the same experience in the Netherlands, that it just takes time?
Yeah, I think so. Like we didn't really, in the survey that we did, we just asked residents and parents more about what did they think of the survey of the school street, of the pilot. And we didn't really, we didn't measure long-term change in mobility choice or, unfortunately we didn't measure this. But I think, as I already said, it's like 4 weeks pilot and then it's summer holiday and people forget about it already. So it's more about keeping the attention towards the topic.
Yeah.
I think to add as well, I think also engagement is very important. That's indeed, it's like getting used to, but also keep on engaging the parents, keep on, like we can start small, but keep on walking with your children to school or cycling, like even though maybe they are not used to it, but if you see that other people are doing it, or maybe the school says it's obligatory, or we really, like I saw also a question for parking, if you make it less attractive for cars to come, then parents will also think, oh, it's not really worth it. So we will walk with the children to school, keep on hearing them, talking with them. I think that's more for long term also the solution, to keep on involving instead of letting it go after the pilot.
To follow up on that one, we have a question asking about how do you educate the children, maybe also the parents, in this, time when it's being implemented, and maybe also, shortly after, to make them change behavior and understand what's going on?
I think the easiest way is to get the children involved, because I think Natasha said it as well, like they had a little game and we also had a little game where they could vote, and it makes them kind of feel responsible also for their parents' choice in transport. So and they start a conversation with their parents about how they travel. So I think that was one of the things that we learned from this pilot.
What is your experience, Natasha? How did you engage the children?
Actually, I think like having the students, the kids, to be ambassador for this safety zone is so much, but it has a huge impact on the parents and the way of the parents accepting that they are not allowed to drive directly to the school area. And for instance, like we have some of these courses where fifth grade could be traffic engineers, where they could find safety routes from their home to their schools. So they're like drawing it on a paper, a whole class, where and then they were presenting it to other kids. And this was kind of like with the project. So I think like it's better it's easier for the parents to accept when it's communicated through the kids. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Then we have a question about if I think it's a question for Monique, who was talking about parking, that was listed as one of your slides as one of the 4 key elements. And can you talk a bit more about how parking factors into a safe school zone?
Yes, of course. I think we can see parking like 3 different kind of parking. So the car parking. So I believe that to make it safer, the car should be parked somewhere maybe in the neighborhood, and then a dedicated space. It's also called park and stride. For example, a dedicated space where parents park their car if there's space, and then walk in a specific route with the children to school, or from there the children can walk to school, so they're still walking from there. But don't make parking spots like too close to the school, for example. That's a nice solution. And the second one is bicycle parking, of course. Like many times you can encourage children to bike, but if there are not enough biking spots then, or not safe, then it's not attractive. And the second one is actually pedestrian parking, to make a dedicated place around the school where the parents can stand also safely to pick the children up if they're young, still too young to walk alone, or just when they can still, like, to have a space where you can stand instead of you have to go and quickly to the school. So I think these are 3 key elements in parking.
Yeah. Is that something you work with, Natasha, to implementing safe school zones in Copenhagen? Enhancing bike parking around the school to make it more attractive to go by bike, or?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm afraid not. Sorry.
To start. So yeah. Yeah, then we have a question about the Eindhoven example, where, Burke, you talked about that there are still a lot of, or some parents at least, still driving their kids to school. What do you think the long-term effects would be, considering change of behavior with these school zones? Do you think there will be any, or will these parents just keep on going by car?
I think there were, like, in these situations, there were some parents who had to travel a long way to get their children to school, but it's not very, usually, especially in cities, it's usually like the children, they live either in walking distance or cycling distance from their school. And I think that in these situations, that for those children, the travel behavior did change, but just during the pilot. I think there needs to be more like a permanent design, or permanent school streets to actually change their behavior for the long time. And of course, we also did the pilot in the month of May, which is kind of nice weather usually. So I think it would still be also kind of nice to try and do a pilot again during winter times or something, and see what new obstacles the parents may face and how you could help them overcome it, because that's maybe something that they are also afraid of, biking with their children in the rain or when it's icy. So I think that would also be nice to see how that works out.
Yeah, that's a great point too. Weather and different time of years also has, an effect, at least here in the northern part of Europe. Okay, so time is up. We have used an hour now. So I just want to say thank you before closing off for all you who have participated. The webinar has been recorded, and we're going to send it out later in an email with a link to the webinar for you to watch again and to share with colleagues. So thank you all for now, and maybe see you in another webinar at another time.
Yeah, see you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.